Sorry. Just making sure. Okay, so we're gonna call this regular meeting Thursday, November 20th, 2025. It is now 7:02 PM of the Deep River Planning and Zoning Commission to order. To roll call, Anthony Bolduc, Chairman, Lisa DiMaria.
Yeah.
Alan Parody.
Here.
Tim Puglielli.
Here.
Stan Reinheimer.
Present.
Daniel Smith.
Here.
Jonathan Kastner, I did not see. And Sarah McAwicky.
Here.
I'm gonna seat you for the vacancy.
Okay.
Ready? To audience of citizens. Citizens may address the commission items that are not on the agenda. I see a bunch of you here. Anybody? Right. Okay, on to approval of minutes. October 29th, special meeting minutes and the record of motions are both on there. Think everybody read them? If so, for motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Looking for second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you. All right, on to old business. Site plan application, addition to create 4 residential dwelling units at existing mixed-use property, 190 Main Street, map 57, lot 45. Applicant J&J Deep River LLC.
I'm not seeing them here, like I said before. They went to the DAB. I do have that I added to the OneDrive, so they did get approval with some conditions, recommendations from the DAB. But they are still finalizing their updated site plan, so.
Okay.
We'll continue the application for 190 Main Street.
All in favor? Assuming no one's opposed. All right. Onto the fine schedule. So there's always dug up one from, had it in here somewhere. Where? From Middlefield.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this one for a couple of months now. You guys all have a chance to look at this? And changes you're interested in making besides changing it from town of Middlefield to town of Deep River?
I can pull some other ones. I think they're all fairly similar.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that you would want to consider is, are there any differences in, you know, the amounts of fees or fines or like over time? Or Middlefield is very they just do 150 a day, which is the maximum you can do. So it's that part is up to the commission, but in terms of what you would want to do as a recommendation, however, it does, because the other question that we had last time that I looked into to see if the word wrong, but they're not, is that it needs to be adopted as an ordinance, which means it has to be go through the board of selectmen and then a town meeting. So that piece needs to be codified there. So really what we should do is make any changes and recommendations that we feel are appropriate and then give it to the BOS. And then
Yeah, they still have a file from last time for all the other ordinances we were doing, so they haven't moved forward with those yet. So I think we could get, if you guys are interested in this, keeping this active, we can get this tool.
I could even like put it on like either a 1.5 Word document or a Google Drive document that could be like, you could leave comments for suggested changes. Because I do think, especially this one, yeah, I want to make sure everybody is, you know, like feels comfortable with whatever gets kind of recommended. But that's my update with that.
From your perspective, do you have concerns with enforcement as were cited in many other towns? I mean, the majority of the towns that opted out of fines, enforcing fines, had to do with the legal implications.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it personally. I think that if you have an official that follows the regulations, you're not going to be in that position. It doesn't happen all the time, but I think in our case, zone. we got somebody that follows the regulations and again, exercise a little bit of discretion as to whether it makes sense to pursue a fine. I think it's a personal, perfectly reasonable scenario, but I did want to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think the way that I see it, because I do the zoning enforcement in Middlefield, so I've seen how it can be useful to be able to like basically threaten with a fine. But I think it personally, my approach would be to really still have that be the last resort because it can be a burden on people and for really egregious things. You know, I think it, I'm struggling to think of an example off the top of my head, but like the case that I had that in Middlefield was blight and hoarding, and it was very severe. And the threat of it allowed for actual mobilization to get it cleaned up. And I think another nice thing that can be a part of, I have to refresh my memory on if it's explicitly said in here or not, but there's also some discretion that can be had in terms of negotiation, which I think is also helpful. So if you have somebody who has racked up the fines to a high amount, and then they're finally listening to you and you say, well, if you get this cleaned up within X amount of time, we'll waive what you owe, or we'll cut it in half or something. It does, you know, I think that also can be useful because in that case, the point of this citation isn't just to like take money, it's to just get people's attention. So I think if that's something, you know, and then with that, who has the authority to decide that? Is it the zoning officer? Is it the citation officer? Is it like, at what point does it need to go to somebody else to say like yes or no to that piece of collecting the fines? And you might have some insights too, because I think you've dealt with that, right? No?
It's been years and I never had to get to that point. I always got my stuff settled, friendly letters, conversations, never ever had to go with fines. And
I'm thinking of one property in particular that would definitely get to the point of fines, and then I would wonder, you know, at what point, you know, and with the particular property that I have in mind, it might even be useful to then have just say like, now you owe us a lot of money because you're not doing that, and that could help leverage.
I think the fines are a good thing to have. As Zoe said, last resort, when people truly don't want to comply. Because we can always go that route. If they can't comply, we can always go that route of bringing in other agencies,
That's right.
health department, social services, that kind of thing. This is for people, as she said, that are egregious, they don't want to comply. We have to do that because we can't absorb all costs all the time for these type of violations. And if there's the negotiation thing in there for those who can't.
I would recommend we put it forward and adopt it. I tend to go on the high side with the fines, make them maximal because it's a matter of leverage and when you have the option for leniency and the ability to settle things without twisting that arm. And that's the way we should go. But I think it's important to be able to have that leverage so that, you know, if people view this as being the cost of doing business, let that accrue until it becomes, you know, an unbearable cost.
Because there have been people, like, not while I was CEO, but it's the Indians who just pay the fines. All right, here's the money. I'm just gonna keep violating. Here's the money. So we need stiff fines. If we're gonna do fines, we need stiff fines.
Right.
And then we need the ability to do what we would like to do with them. So.
I have a question. So the first step then in remediation would be to solve through the zoning officer's office. And would they be the office then that would assign it to the health department or wherever else, or does it need to escalate to back to this commission as a line item on the commission for the monthly meeting, or would that go to the selectmen? How would it escalate?
If look, for example, if I saw something that looked like it was of a health department concern, I would just tell that.
So the zoning
Yeah.
office, so this could
So
all
I-
be
I-
taken care of inside the zoning office.
Yeah. There's certain things that even now, like if there's if there's an overlap of like, hey, this department probably should be aware. That already happens. It just, there's no financial implications. It's just, hey, this is a problem. At least for the zoning.
What is the worst case scenario where the person just ignores it, the fines just build up? I'm thinking of at least one property, the fine build up, the person doesn't care. Do we have any other actions we can take?
Then it would go to court. Which is right now what would ultimately happen, but. mm, Yeah, if people, most of the time, like the town, most of the time doesn't want to go to that
Right.
route, because it's pretty extreme, but if you have somebody who's accrued thousands and thousands of dollars in fines, and it's also an easier argument for it, and it's more worth it for the town.
Well, should we have a ceiling on that? I mean, at what point do we pull the
I thought there
trigger?
was, wasn't there? I thought after a certain amount, like, catch me on my off day. There was a.
I think maybe,
I remember seeing, I apologize.
I'd recommend that we maybe fine tune the language on this when it goes to the selectmen as an ordinance.
Yeah.
Because there's gonna be other factors, but just in deference to time for the other issues, maybe. I think we advance this, but.
Okay.
Would people like me
not
to
Smith it.
like share something so you can make comments and suggestions, and then,
Yeah.
because I think, or Tony, you had that
Yeah,
Google Drive already, so
Yeah.
we could.
yeah, so we can, so we'll throw that on there, because we'll have to change it to Deep River anyway, and say to put that one forward at the next meeting anyway, so.
But that way, like,
Yeah.
those kinds of questions, we can make sure are addressed before.
Okay.
Sending it over to the BLS.
Very good, I like that.
I don't think we'll, maybe just punt this like we have done.
Yep.
Alrighty,
Okay, those are-
item C, downtown map plan.
Hi. I did something for you guys, not a zoning officer. It's you know, basic, it's a final-ish draft, because I want to get input, response and reaction from the committee that was part of the downtown master plan process, which you should have received an email from me about that, and we'll schedule that, but also endorsement from both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Economic Development Commission. So the draft is in the OneDrive. We don't really have to go over any of it now, but I'm just putting it out there that read through it. Let me know if you have any thoughts or reactions, or just fact check me. It is kind of a long document, and while I was getting really close to finishing, I realized something and had to go back and fix it. So if I missed something, just let me know. It does happen.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I'm not perfect yet.
Yeah.
will be.
But yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware, and that we can, oh, you printed it. Look at that. Hefty.
That's nice, isn't it beautiful?
Wait, what happened to all the maps?
What next?
Oh, there's full-size maps of all the utilities and the road and.
Well,
Oh,
those
that's
didn't-
that's a separate
Yeah.
document.
Yeah.
That's its own document. I did not try to combine those two, because it would have been impossible to open.
It is a nicely done, I have to say, they did a really good job,
Very
like
proud.
on everybody's front, so.
Yeah, comprehensively. I mean, all
Yes.
the effort, the amount of information is in there is actually.
Yeah.
Very significant. I think, yeah. The next steps will be important, and I encourage everybody on this commission to kind of at least read through that, because it will have implications on regulations and I thought it was a very good document, especially because it does represent our interests as well as economic development. So as a collaborative document, I thought it was very good.
As a side note to that, now Tony's aware of,
Yep.
everybody else, but Stacy Danello from the Economic Development Commission is looking into another Main Streets program. She invited myself, with my flexible schedule, and I know Dan Box, she reached out to, reach out to anyone else here, or if they're interested, they can contact Stacy. It basically, it'll kind of supposed to teach us how to look at this with an educated eye, so that we can act on it. And then we have to come up with, it's actually like a workshop type thing over a period of months. And at the end, we're supposed to have a project. And if we can come up with a good project, we'll receive grants to enact on. So this will go right in tandem with that. I know everybody's busy, but I encourage anybody, let's have some time, just reach out to Stacy, I'm sure she's putting the application in tomorrow, so we'll see how this.
Cool. All right, so again, we're gonna see this again next month. I don't think we need anything on it, so,
I'm gonna see it really fast. I
Uh-oh.
printed it out.
all right.
Feels nice.
So
Yeah.
whilst you're reading that, I'm gonna
Ethan.
move on to item A, new business. Site plan application recycling volume reduction facility under section 4.31.33 of the zoning regulations, 400 Commercial Drive. Is there an agent or applicant here?
You said your answer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. We're on it.
Alright, the sound is.
Where's a good place for us to present?
Sorry, there's not a lot of space. I can move the screen back if that helps you, but I'm thinking here just so you're.
On this side right here, so you're facing the right way?
So they'll be on.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot that one of our members is on there. So yeah, that.
Okay.
I do also have whatever the stuff that you left in my office. It looks like you
Okay.
guys also brought stuff
Great.
in here.
I forgot you came online.
Or if anybody at the table, you.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Chuck Andrews. I'm an attorney. I practice land use at Bartlett, Damon, and New Haven. With me this evening is our engineer, Mark Zesson, our owner operators, Dave Parati and Chris Oxer, and our environmental attorney, Brent Elliott. I just want to give you an overview of how we intend to proceed with the presentation here. First, I'm going to provide you with some background and history about the approvals and the applications that were submitted to this board. I know we were here before, but my understanding there are some new members from when we were here back in 2022. Next, I'm going to present why we are proceeding now with this application. There is a pending ZBA appeal related to the same issue, but so why are we coming back here? And then third, I want to explain why we're pursuing this, why you have the authority and should approve this application as a site plan that under this use that we applied. So we'll start with the use in history. This is a recycling volume reduction facility. It is a waste management facility. What that basically means is you bring waste types onto the site. It gets processed, shredded, compacted, baled, and then it gets removed the site. I believe it's typically within 24 hours. And it gets either to a recycling area, a waste to energy facility, or a landfill. This type of use is what I would call, what the land use lawyers call LULUs, locally undesirable land uses. And the reason I say that is that this is like, and there's a number of uses like that, is that everyone sort of agrees, yeah, we need to have some good waste management, but they prefer that it be somewhere else. And there are other examples like that. You can think of like cell towers. For example, we need our cell service, but they got to be, we'd rather it be somewhere else. In these sorts of areas, you get this intermixing of both local and state regulation. And this one, for example, this use has always been heavily regulated by the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. And that typically is a very long process. It takes years to get your permit, and it's a very thorough process. And the law has changed over the years as to what extent the local jurisdiction is. And frankly, in looking at the history of this, I think that accounted for some of the absence of applications here, just trying to look at this. So here, going down to the history, the site is at 400 Commercial Drive. It's in the Commercial Industrial Park. It's 3.5 acres. In 2025, in September 25, the former owner applied for and received a special permit for recycling a volume reduction facility. And that's what's there on the site. It was approved under the regulation. At that point, it was 5.1.42. It is the regulation that is presently existing. It's manufacture, fabrication, processing, compounding, treatment, assembly, maintenance, repair, or packaging of goods and products located in a building or structure of 6,000 feet or more of gross floor area. So you have that general manufacturing. It's a very broad category. That was the use line that the original approval was approved under in 2005. The approval allowed up to 200 tons per day of waste types that consisted of recyclables, bulky waste, and construction and demolition. Condition 2 of that permit provided that any application to DEEP for increased volume or management of other waste types would warrant a modification of the permit. Although the commission at the time of the modification may choose to have the CEO handle the modification administratively. So I think that's a recognition that this use, this volume reduction recycling facility contemplated that it would be a change of use, but it would be this same type of use, which comes within that general industrial category, it could accept different types of waste types. It's still doing the same thing. It's compacting the stuff, compressing it, treating it, and then shipping it out. But if you do a different type of waste, you got to get a modification. That's what that's. So that was the first permit. That's the 2005 permit. The 2006 permit, there was amended, but it basically said the same thing. I couldn't tell anything different. And then in 2008, there was a further modification. It approved an amendment that allowed the tonnage to go to 350 tons a day. So I think that, and that is the last local permit that I'm aware of. But the use line in the 2008 permit was light manufacturing, fabrication, processing, compounding, treatment, assembly, maintenance, repair, or packaging of goods and products. Again, that use was allowed at that time by special permit in the CIPD, the district, which is where we're located. So same use line on the law that you approved this use. The same use, by the way, is allowed virtually identical in the current regulations under section 7B21 and number 4.31, number 33. Again, same words, same language, same use line. So that's, I got you to 2008. In 2010, I mentioned at the beginning this multi, state and local jurisdiction. The former owner, applied to DEEP to modify its permit to include putrescent municipal solid waste. That application was filed in November 2010. Interestingly, in November 2010, a Superior Court ruled, and Mr. Slater said this in one of his letters, that as a result of change of legislation in 2006, DEEP had exclusive jurisdiction over the siting of solid waste facilities, and local zoning had no in the siting. So the law at that time, starting in 2010, was that there wasn't a local permit that was needed, and there wasn't one applied for. Now, that got changed because the legislature looked at that Superior Court case and said, "Oh, that's not correct." In 2012, it passed a statute, and that's basically what it says today. It says that you can have local regulation, but it has this caveat that no municipal regulation adopted pursuant to Section 8.2, which is your Zoning Enabling Act, shall have the effect of prohibiting the construction, alteration, or operation of solid waste facilities within the limits of the municipality. So that's what, and I think you're aware of that, and your council has advised you about that. So that was adopted in 2012. So that sort of gave you the right, okay, you can regulate it, but you got to allow some. That's kind of what that was. And the former owner should have applied for modification once the new statute was applied. But he granted the permit, the modification of the permit to allow the municipal MSW waste in 2015. We didn't own it at the time. Again, we didn't own the site. But we believe that the former owner, because we're in the business, we know what's going on. The former owner started accepting municipal solid waste in 2015. So frankly, it means that this site has actually been accepting municipal solid waste for about a decade. In September 2019, that's when our client, Eastern Transfer LLC, purchased the property. It was accepting bulky and municipal solid waste at the time, and frankly, we wouldn't have bought it if it didn't. That was our understanding, that it was allowed. That was part of what we needed, and it needs that use to be viable. We all thought the approvals were in place. One reason was because we had obtained a letter from the town's zoning enforcement officer that there were no unresolved zoning violations on file. And it's part of the financing. It's in the file. I've submitted that. That's part of the litigation that I don't want to get into any estoppel claims. I'm just saying, we had a good faith belief because their zoning office gave us a letter saying there were no zoning violations. That seems to me a use violation is a zoning violation. But we also dealt with the town directly. We provided our deep permit, and some of the materials I presented, I think it's Mr. Oxford, he said, he's dealing with the first selectman saying, here's our deep permit. We can accept your municipal solid waste. And as a matter of fact, we did. The town actually used our site to accept municipal solid waste in 2021. There was, and I submitted the receipts. There were 207 tons of municipal solid waste from the town in 2021. At that point, I guess it became clear, wait a minute, you don't have your local approval. We had some talking about that. So we applied. We applied for modification of special permit. That was in 2022. In October 22, the commission denied that application. Mr. Guskowski issued a couple of notices of violation, which we appealed to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the ZBA held a public hearing in April and May, and ended up upholding Mr. Guskowski's opinion. And we filed an appeal on that, and that appeal is pending. So just to get there is some litigation out there on some of these issues. So why are we applying now if we're trying, it's in court? So, and the answer is this, that although the ZBA upheld Mr. Guskowski's order, we heard when I was looking, and I'm kind of new to the team, but I looked through the transcripts and I saw what I thought was fairly encouraging information. Because even though this was like in April 2024, which by the way, which was after you had amended your regulations for a special use category for waste, you had Mr. Guskowski and I believe your chair said, that the way forward is to come back before planning and zoning. So we assume those were made in good faith, that you weren't just going to show us up and deny us, because the use isn't allowed because we've adopted something new. So what I did is said, okay, how can we apply? What is our basis for applying? Because, now I'm aware that, although we didn't know about it at the time because we didn't read legal notices, but you've adopted a whole separate bunch of categories about this. So, and I've looked at that and I believe that the use is allowed. Now I'll go through my analysis why you are. We've applied for this use under the same use category, which this commission granted in the 2006, 2005, 2006, 2008 special permits. Again, it's light manufacturing, fabrication, processing, compounding, treatment, assembly, maintenance, repair, packaging of goods and products. And this use, even though it's a different waste size, it's the same use. And in your earlier ones, you contemplated that it would be encompassed by the same use. So that use category still applies. Right now, that general light manufacturing, I thought it was going to be special permit because this one was back in 2005, 2008, and it said it was over 6,000 square feet. You amended your regulations to allow by site plan. If it were a special permit, I would have applied for a special permit. But that's what your regulations say. That same use that you approved it for at that time is now allowed by site plan. Frankly, I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference. You could still impose conditions and whatever, special permit, site plan, but that's the use category where I think this fits. The use involves processing, compounding, treatment, assembly, and packaging of goods and products. And whether the input is cardboard pallets or kitchen scraps, it still separates, shreds, bales, and packages goods and ships them out. It's the same thing. So the use, I believe the use fits into that category just like it did earlier. Now, the interesting question is, well, what about the amendments? You did a bunch of amendments in early 2004 where you regulated solid waste facilities, a very broad facility. I think it encompasses this. So you have two categories, frankly, where this use could be covered. And I've seen some regulations that say when you have two categories, and that's not unusual, by the way, you can have a use that can fit in two categories just because the way regulations are and the way things are, you could sometimes do that. And sometimes I've seen regulations that say, if you have something in two categories, the more restrictive one applies. But yours don't say that. The bigger issue, however, is that, again, this is in in January and April 2024, you provided the solid waste facilities and you said they're allowed only in the Turnpike Industrial District. So it's not we're alone. And there was a number of specific conditions because I listened to the public hearing, you're very concerned that we want this use to be protected. And you listed a whole bunch of conditions that would have to be satisfied. And one of the conditions is that the lot where the use is located must be 250 feet from a resident. It cannot be within 200 feet from a residential lot or a lot in which a dwelling is located. That's one of the first criteria. And I think when I listened to the public hearing, you had a resident because it's kind of condensed down there. Residents say, hey, I'm concerned about this. So you put a 250 feet separation distance. Separation distance is sometimes something you do with uses. I typically think of them like for cannabis or for adult uses or, pornography. You have these, so there's something you put in regulations. The problem here is that there are lots with residences spread throughout the district. And we did an analysis. There are only 10 properties in the TID district. And none of them can meet that separation distance. And we provided a report from Mr. Zesson. It's in the record. We did a supplement from that. You wouldn't think that there's a house on a particular lot, but we investigated that and provided the data. So, and frankly, an affiliate of our company owns one of the properties. It's at 481 Main Street. It's about 9 acres. If our client were looking to expand, that property is 3 times the site. And, if we wanted to become this is relatively small, but if we wanted to become a more regional or statewide or bigger operation, you could go on that site. But frankly, we don't want to do that. We just want to continue to do what we've been doing, have the right to do. There was an oversight. That's what really all we're seeking to try to do of that. So so you have the problem. Remember, your existing regulation violates 22A 208BB because of that separation distance. Remember that says that it shall no regulation shall have the effect of prohibiting the construction, alteration, operation, or solid waste facilities within the limits of the municipality. So if you said it's only in the TID, it can only be one of these 10 lots, and none of those 10 lots can satisfy the separation distance, you prohibit it. You violate that section. But I don't think you have prohibited it because it's allowed under this other use item. I think you do have the right to regulate it. And that's why we've applied for that, which you made a site plan. We're not claiming you can allow it anywhere because of the separation distance problem. We think it still is, you can properly regulate it as a site plan because you made this use a site plan. If it was a special permit, be a special permit. So that's why we've applied for that, because it's the same use category that was before. You adopted this other regulation, but frankly, no one can locate anything under there. So it violates 22A 208, but you can still regulate it under this section. This is, and I say it's not a toothless regulation because it requires that the operation, because there's special standards for industrial use. It has to be a completely enclosed building. So one of the things we are proposing is to add doors, which is a major expense to the operation. It was something that was raised at the last time, the 22 one, and I don't think there was ever a decision, but I'm telling them, look, this is the regulation that we're authorized under. It says you got to be completely enclosed, you got to have doors. So we propose doors. So what I mentioned there's pending litigation, but our goal here is not to, see who wins, much as, like kids and grandkids to be paid for college educations. That's not the goal. It's just frankly to continue what really has been going on for the last decade. We're a business in town. We believe is a valuable and needed service. We pay taxes. We got vacant property next door, which we'd like to do a non-waste use on there. But if we can't continue doing what we do and what we thought we had the right to do, we're going to have serious problems. I think we do a good job. There's an email in the record from your Public Works Director. I'll just read. This is, Eric Waldke. He's probably the person in town who deals with this the most. He's Public Works guy. I'll just read part of it. Says, I have had an outstanding relationship with Eastern Transfer Station for as long as they've been in Deep River. Eastern has always exhibited a willingness to assist the town in whatever we need. And they can tell you examples where we've helped the town out with their own trucks and so forth. And then he says at the end, in addition, I'm pleased to see that they maintain their oil water separator, silt collection systems, and follow other environmental protocols. I have been to a lot of waste facilities, and I can confidently say Eastern Transfer is among the best in business. Strong guys. We also got a letter from, if you're looking at impacts, you're going to consider what about the immediate neighborhood? You don't, I mean, I give less credence if they're 2 miles away. But what about other people in the industrial park? We've got a letter from the Full Pen Fabrication. They fabricate or they make metal fabrications, and they're also in the industrial park around the corner from us. So they're not far away. They would be impacted. And I'll just read parts of this. I'm writing to express my support for Eastern Transfer Station and their continued presence in Deep River. As a local business, I have personally seen how their operations contribute to our small community in meaningful ways. Eastern Transfer Station provides a local option for residents and businesses to manage their refuge, making the essential services more convenient and accessible. For neighboring businesses like mine, their location has brought increased visibility to our town. Many new visitors and potential customers discover our services simply by being in the area, which helps small businesses like ours thrive in what we can otherwise would be a quiet industrial park. Their presence also helps put Deep River on the map for contractors and visitors from surrounding towns, highlighting our community as a place that supports both local businesses and essential services. While there have been past incidents, the facility remains an important resource. And I understand that steps have been taken to address safety concerns. I truly believe that maintaining Eastern Transfer Station, our community, benefits residents, neighboring businesses, and the town as a whole. I respectfully encourage the town to support their continued operation so that Deep River can continue to offer accessible services and remain a vibrant, welcoming community. So I'm done right now. I want to, if you have any questions about the use issues and anything else, I'm the guy, I'm the attorney, but I don't do the business. And these guys are the operations people. Mark's going to present the site plan, and he knows, he does this stuff and knows the facility pretty well.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Mark Zesson, Barton Tools Consulting Engineers. I've been working on facilities like this, similar to this, since the 1980s. Professional engineer to work with the state's trash authority, the Connecticut Resources and Recovery Authority. Statutes. Go away. And so basically work for many of the people like Eastern Transfer in the waste industry here in Connecticut. Was back in front of this commission in 2005, working for Paul Santa Barbara with Integrated Waste Solutions when the facility was first proposed. I over 100 facilities a year for audits, or I should say I do over 100 facility audits a year, roughly with for over 20 years. I should about that number. I'm there at those facilities at least that often. This facility is basically as it was constructed back in the early 2000s. The only difference, I'll show you on the second sheet, is the doors, which Mr. Proddy has agreed to put on the building, the south wall of the building. This here's the north. To the right on this map, this is the end of Commercial Drive. So generally I'll refer to this as the south face, the north face. And as has always been the case, over further to your right, be Route 80, Industrial Park Road, comes up to Commercial Drive. At the end of the cul-de-sac, the last property on the cul-de-sac, trucks come in. This white rectangle here is a truck weigh scale. They can be instructed to advance by lights by the scale operator, which would be in the office. The trucks come around the back of the building. The solid waste or demolition waste, they go back into this end of the building. For inner recyclables, they go back in over here. After they've deposited their load inside the building, they come back out. They wait for the advance from the scale operator to go back over the scale, get their tear weight, empty weight, and they leave. Now, that's basically been the way the facility's been operating day one. As I mentioned, I go to these facilities a lot, and I can say that there are facilities this size that routinely handle 3 times as much material as this facility does. There's a facility in New Haven, I'm very familiar with, one of my other clients owns it, permitted for 967 tons a day, about 3 times what we're talking here. It routinely does about 3 times what this facility routinely does. I worked on other facilities in Hartford that do over 2,000 tons a day. Waste energy plant, just talking about facilities that are like this, where everything that comes in has to go back out. Whereas a waste energy plant, stuff comes in, it gets combusted and made into energy, and about 20% of that goes back out as ash. So, but on these facilities, people call them dumps, so nothing is left here. Everything that comes in a truck is processed, consolidated, and goes back out, either to market or further use, reuse or recycling, or to waste energy plant or to a landfill. When there's capacity, MSW capacity, that's where it goes to waste energy plants. The demolition after the things like metal and cardboard, which are recoverable or clean fill, asphalt, bricks, and concrete, which can be reused as a construction aggregate. The remaining so-called residue from demolition materials, there are only a couple of places left in Connecticut. One of them is the Manchester landfill that still takes demolition, but you may be familiar with the fact that a good amount of the land demolition waste that's generated here goes out of state to landfills in New York, Pennsylvania. Some of it's part of the way is Ohio. Because it's tough to get one of these. It's nearly impossible to site a new landfill in the state. Some people are trying to expand what they have. But in the event, the gray here is all asphalt. But there's a oil water separator, which was referred to in the Public Works Director's memo regarding this facility. We'll quickly go to the elevation views on the south side. So this is the south end of the building. That end of the building, if you were to stand over here, what you basically see is this: the office here at a lower elevation, the recycling area where cardboard is baled. Outbound trucks here, where the demo and MSW come in, is to the right. There was some discussion in the past with commissioning of the state, as there are many facilities regarding putting doors in. It's a little more complicated than just sticking doors, because there's actually big wide open areas. And the framing of the building has been put for doors, but Mr. Proddy's agreed to basically construct the remaining sections of walls, put in the framing, which is extensive, to put up these doors, because these doors are wider and taller than anybody's garage door would ever be. So they're very expensive to frame in and install. He has agreed to do that. So we further define exactly where the different trucks would come in and exit the building. So
Does that mean each of those ports has a different function? So in other words, you'd have one clean cardboard, you have one for demolition, you have one for MSW. They're not like universal. It all does the same thing.
generally, the cardboard's over here and the demo and the MSW over here, with multiple doors so that more than one truck can access at a time.
But the demo and the MSW go in the same bin.
No, they're accepted separately, because the state is encourages the company very much to take the demolition and put it on the floor and separate cardboard and metal and aggregates from the demolition. The only thing that the state really on facilities over the last few years has encouraged people to do at other facilities, it's not done here presently, is to take the MSW and actually have you put your MSW into your food into a bag. I call them like the old cameras still had film, the film bags, which are heavier plastic. People put their food in those bags, And then when those come, the people at other facilities, we work with people doing these so-called demonstration, those bags are separated and sent to a digestion facility or a composting facility. There are certain chunks of metal, like a radiator or something, which it's amazing sometimes what people put in even to a municipal solid waste. You can put a dumpster out there that says, well, this is for garbage and that one's for demo and that one's for cardboard. The next thing you know, there's a radiator, you know, in the garbage, right? And so they're not going to repack a radiator, old school radiator, and send it to the waste energy plant because they don't want it, right? First off, they're not going to put that into the burner. But generally, the state does not want recyclables to be taken from garbage because they think that the recycling people won't want it. But if you read so-called dirty materials recovery facilities and other things where people are really pushing the recycling, there are many places where they're actually looking at actually having people take raw garbage and pull cardboard and other things from it. It's not here in Connecticut yet, but other things like plastics, you know, if you say if you have a 5-gallon paint pail in with the garbage, the plastic is not rendered not usable by the fact that it was with garbage.
So the only process that's happening in that bay for the MSW, separation of the plastics from the component. Is the only process.
They consolidate it. It either, like they talked about bailing it, and they talked about it, but one of the main purposes of any transfer station, even before anybody was recycling, the main function of the transfer station is to make things, consolidate things for more efficient, long distance. And people say, well, more efficient. It's like, it's still more efficient to take three 7-ton loads to the incinerator, excuse me, 1 20-ton load to the incinerator rather than 3 7-ton loads. If you're coming from Deep River and you're going to Bridgeport, and rather than sending 3 trucks to Bridgeport, rather than having 3 trucks wait in line for sometimes a couple hours, you send 1 truck and you get those so-called collection trucks back on the road doing what they do, which is going house to house, picking up people's toters, or going business to business, picking up the small cans. So generally, everybody in the business doesn't want to send the route trucks to the waste energy plants because it takes sometimes hours to get through the line of sometimes dozens of trucks to get to the waste energy plant. And so it's always more efficient. That's why transfer stations, even say the regional transfer station, some people are probably familiar with in Essex. Well, though that was set up to serve the Mid-Connecticut waste energy plant. It's like you could have sent 3 trucks from Chester or Deep River up to Hartford, or you can send those 3 trucks to Essex and send that to Hartford. And that's why CRA developed that as a regional transfer station. It's 100% for more efficient transport. And so, you know, that is the efficiency. It saves gas, it saves fuel, it saves time, whether it's coming in state or out of state. So that's what these facilities. There are other things in the demo that the state and other people would like to see recovered, like, for instance, drywall, scrap drywall, vinyl siding. And so we may talk at some point about the state permit. And, you know, the state permit is they are encouraging Eastern Transfer and others to extract to the extent possible materials that can be recovered. So, you know, for sustainability for the planet, everybody's talking about it. But this facility is one facility that's doing something about it. So that's the operation. It's pretty straightforward. Nothing will really change except for this south wall, which is proposing to be enclosed and have doors, which can be completely shut at night when they're not being used. I go to these facilities, as I said, all the time during slow period, rather than having, you know, 6 doors open, and they only have 3 doors open. Because there's no reason, especially in wintertime, it's more comfortable to be working in there without all the doors open. But if it's busy, it's more efficient to have the, you know, 2 trucks back and then emptying. Just one at a time. So that's how the facility works. But we could say, to what Attorney Andrews was talking about before, we looked at it was affected the TID zone. We looked, there is a house right in the middle of the bigger commercial properties there. It's still a house. That's what looks like to us. That's what the town's assessor says. It is a dwelling. There's dwellings on the other, I was talking about that on the west side of 154. On the east side of 154, there's dwellings on 2 parcels, basically prohibiting there from being any kind of facility.
And that's south side, but that abuts the children's, the Bushy Hill camp.
For this property,
Yeah.
yep, and they've been the abutters from day one, and have never, to my knowledge, said it had any problem with anybody at the facility. But it's a long way.
Yeah, they're far.
Put it this way, the town's,
Still be happy about the doors.
What's that?
You'd be happy about the doors.
well, I can say this, the town's own transfer station is closer than their buildings. I'll go back to the commercial drive site, the town has a transfer station right across Route 80 as well. And that's closer to this facility than most of the buildings on the campsite. We call it the Incarnation Camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the official name, I think, of the place on the land records.
So actually, I have a couple questions. So last time we talked about this, there was talk of batteries, tires, and so where is that at this moment?
As I was saying earlier, with respect to roll-offs, you have a roll-off container or even a container, for a house clean out. Things show up in there, tires, batteries. In the state refers to those as incidental waste. And so incidental amounts of tires and incidental amounts of batteries just show up at occasion. Is David going out there looking for tires and batteries? No, but it's nearly impossible, even with a small can, to say what's in it. You can go out there and look it up and look, it's a bunch of paper, but in the bottom of the bunch of paper is battery.
Right, so it's nothing more than incidental stuff.
Incidental tires and batteries. So the state, if you look at the permit, the state recognizing those things are going to come in limits the operator as to how much of those incidental materials show up. But I mean, he can speak for himself, but he's not looking for a load of batteries or a load of tires coming. But once they show up, he's also not looking to stuff them in the bottom of the load and make it the waste energy plant's problem, or stuff them in the bottom of the load and make it the Manchester landfill or some other guy in Ohio's problem. He's going to take the tires, do what he's supposed to do, take the batteries, do what they're supposed to do. Just like if somebody puts a radiator in the trash, they're gonna pick it out because it's just better for everybody.
And what's the typical time on site for household waste? I mean,
Most everything moves within a day, but there are, again, the state says 40 hours on putrescible waste, other than weekends. That's right out of the regs. I mean, David and Chris can speak to that, but I mean, cardboard, a bale of cardboard, nobody has a problem if that's sitting there, typically. But to make a bale of cardboard, the most efficient way of doing it is to make it so you can put 20 tons of cardboard on a truck. And so that's, I'm guessing, how they would do it.
There was a fire at the site. There were 2 fires. If that's the question. The good news is that it's interesting because most of the time you're considering a use, you're wondering about what are the impacts going to be. This use has actually been around. And I think in the 8 years you've owned the site, these have been the only fires. The good news is that the system worked. That the worst case scenarios when you have a fire, that it got put out. There was no pollution. There was no offsite pollution to anything. And I think the fire marshal, you guys have spoken with the fire marshal, I believe Chris and Dave, they've done reports. I think there was testing of the pond downstream to see if there's any issue, and there weren't. So I think that is the that is the good news, that the the system that we had works, even though there
But
has been fire.
the park was shut down for a good long time, not because something happened, but there was significant potential that something was going to happen. And that's why, so that's the incompatibility of use. We talk about, neighboring properties and the implication on a point in time. That affects the entire population. If there's a misstep, which we need to acknowledge that there is a high possibility of it, just because you're required to do the testing and the park could not be open until that was complete. So
During the heat.
I would say this, the town did the testing.
Yep.
We did similar tests. There was no problems. There's often tests, that pond has been shut down for other reasons, because the health department also tests for college, which nobody's
Yeah.
implied or coming from this facility. We didn't say there was a problem with fire. The fire marshal didn't say there was a problem with fire. Somebody's perception was that there was a problem with fire. The reality is, the town's own consultant, Apex, which is available on the town's website, has indicated that there was nothing beyond background or something coming from Route 80 that showed up in the results. And so whatever people's perceptions are, that's not the reality of this. And we've been monitoring the runoff from this facility. I should say, have been having health monitors in the facility in terms of stormwater, water quality since 2005. We were not the engineers of record. We were the second owner between 2000.
and I do recall you went through a lot of effort for containment.
That's right. And
those.
those devices work. And we've been in constant contact with the fire marshal regarding fire control plan in their own report. Unfortunately, going back to what sometimes a battery showing up on load, the most likely cause of the fire department marshals results were inconclusive. But I can say that from going to these facilities for decades, the number of fires at these facilities has increased because of the amount of lithium batteries that people use. And you can get a little battery, it's this big, and your dust buster uses it, or
It's just a volume of.
their batteries,
small
everybody's coming to go to the hardware store and you can get whatever is running on a battery. Problem with those batteries, you got somebody in our office have one in his pocket and it's practically lights his pocket on fire, but it shorts to his keys. And so that's what happens. You get a lithium battery in a short and some cardboard and a fire can start. And that's why nobody's gonna say it's not impossible. It's
So
not
that's what you
possible.
refer to as the incidental waste, is things that aren't supposed to be in there.
Right.
You acknowledge they're in there because you have.
And what
containers.
they will do is segregate them as soon as they see them. The problem is, if somebody has something wrapped up in a piece of paper, I mean, but it's happened at other similar facilities. Frankly, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more on the side of the road, people's own garbage. But I'm sure there's a great potential for the town to have the town transfer station, or I could say any dumpster in town, because unfortunately, the thing about a dumpster, and I've seen this, dumpsters are made of metal. You get a battery up against the dumpster, it's gonna short and it can start a piece of fiber on fire, like it happened in the Walgreens parking lot.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Were both fires in the base or were they outside of
They were both inside the building. Inside the building, conveyed to the inside of the building. The building, there was no structural damage that rendered the building not usable. There is some visual from the paint, paint didn't like the heat, but the building itself is still functioning.
You said you talked to the fire marshal quite a bit about this, and do you have any recommendations about anything that should be upgraded or? If you,
I can speak to that. I've spoken to Adam Kirk quite often, and he hasn't given any updates, anything that he would recommend. But he did state that, the ponds in the area, as he did during our hearing, or the last time we were here in 22, that were very sufficient to, help suppress any fires. And sadly, we did have a fire, but it did prove his theory.
I would say one thing that we
One
talked
quick
about,
second, I gotta grab his name.
Chris Oxer.
one thing that Chris and I have talked about, but I've talked about this, we both talked about this, people at the DEP all the time. DEP issues more literature on this than anybody, which is what is safe, educating the folks, put stuff in the container, what is safe to put in the container versus what you're not supposed to put in the container. I work at a facility the middle of the state, you think 900 tons a day, talking about recyclables. And I'd say most of the stuff going in there is recyclable, but people will just put stuff like yard hoses, batteries, Christmas trees, pillows. It's all in their single stream. And the problem with the yard hose is the plastic is actually recyclable. The problem is you get 50 foot of hose wrapped around the conveyor or wrapped around the cardboard shredder, and it jams up the machine, which makes them stop 50 people working for an hour. Like somebody goes in and cuts the hose off the conveyor. The problem with the battery is, you know, it's hard to see whether you have one little toter with 30 gallons of garbage or a 90-gallon toter, which a lot of people have. You know, if you get a 2-yard can or 30-yard can, 2 batteries is a problem. But Chris and David have people trying to find this stuff.
Yeah.
But the best thing is to tell people not to put them, bring those to the town transfer station or have a thing in the school or have something in the town hall where people can put, or go to the hardware store where you got them, or Home Depot, and don't bring them, don't hide them in a box of Kleenex in your recyclables.
Yeah, and admittedly, you're not the source of that problem. You're just faced with that problem because the source of the problem is people that aren't processing their waste correctly. It's more convenient just to stick it in there. So then you have to deal with it. But that's the issue that we have to deal with. There are these exceptions that create the issue. I mean, I got a place in Maine and everybody in my town has their own landfill on their own property and handles everything, right? But the issue is it's the unknowns, and I know that you have measures in place, containment, and sorting, separating, and yet the issue is still existing. I think back to your initial argument in the point of use.
Sure.
And definition of the use is all tied to goods and products. All those processes associated with goods and processes. And that's why it fits into an industrial zone, is that there is a industrial process that adds value. I understand it completely with the recycling. There are things that we want to capture from industrial products, separating balance from wood. One's fuel, one's being reprocessed into. So it is a product there. Fuel, okay, if you're burning cardboard and that type of product, I guess there's a use. I've done biomass facilities. It's the same sort of thing. You're using a byproduct and turning it to energy.
Right.
But yeah, I think you get the term once, and then you move to MSW, the putrescent solid waste is what is the product or the good that is derived from the putrescent solid waste? Because as I see it, it's the MSW is really being consolidated for the purpose of efficiency and transport. But there's, and if it's not being, if there's something, a good's not being extracted from, it doesn't meet the definition.
Okay. You have it, my, Chris, do you?
Yeah. The good that's being extracted from the MSW is it's being sent to a waste energy plant primarily.
You also send clean wood we work on a biomass plant somewhere inside, this in Plainfield, which
Same thing
takes
as Mira.
1,000 tons a day.
But you're pulling the wood from the MSW,
We pull the wood from, right now, they're pulling the wood from down.
right? And that's a permitted place.
And, but it's the same, what I'm saying is that's fuel. The MSW is a fuel that goes to Bridgeport, Lisbon, and Bristol, which are all still, Mid-Connecticut Waste Energy Plant shut down. But Bristol still takes straight up municipal solid waste, over 2,000 tons a day. Lisbon takes about 600 tons a day. I think Bristol's about the same.
But what's the process that makes it fuel from how it arrived to how it's being shipped out?
Each plant, there's two kinds of plants. One is like mass burns, which just take the things that are not combustible out in the front end and then burn it and recover waste. There's also refuse derived fuel plants, which is what the Mid-Connecticut was, one which was more thoroughly basically chops up the municipal solid waste to make it more combustible. Even the mass burns do it. But basically, you're not gonna take like a straight up phone book and try and burn it in a minute. So they're taking the garbage to make it combustible. The company could, even under state permit right now, take a lot of towns, including the town I go to, where they have a food waste only can. They're not. We could take food waste only, consolidate that, bring it to in Southington, there's a plant where they anaerobically digest food only, where they get digestate, but also syngas or synthetic natural gas, which they can either clean up or put into a pipeline or use it for their own process.
But you're not receiving any food products per se that's compostable, or that's.
Well, right now, about
I guess.
10 to 20% of the trash, regular trash is food waste. It's just not separated. They could take it separated, or they could also take bags of food, like I was saying before.
But that's not part of your application, that process.
No, it's the fuel right now.
Right now, it's the fuel. Just like with the demo, there's lots of things that could be separated. There are things the state wants them to separate it. The problem is there's not a market. And right now, even Southington, the market conditions are such that everybody wants to use that facility so they can say they're being green. And they have, there's too much capacity for that plant. So these guys, are they doing it now? No, but could they? They could.
So right now, the answer is it's fuel, and it could also be a combustible thing in the future.
Right, so it comes in as fuel, because that's fuel.
And they
Well, in the sense that,
consolidated.
a piece of wood, it can be fuel. It's a carbon, the material itself.
Right. But it's,
Yeah, but it's assembled, it's processed, it's packed. The word packing is in there. That's one of the verbs. If you look at the use, packing of, and it becomes a fuel.
One of our points of discussion, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
good.
One of our points of discussion had to, particularly as it stands now, but with my increasement, is in the same category, I guess, as incidental. It's not totally in control, but the trucks do come up through to get to the facility before they're gonna be managed, and then the trucks can be parked very clean, right, we've all seen them. But, the issue with Route 80 is it's a carved out road, so they dynamited through some rock faces that are on the side. When the garbage trucks go past that, that's physics. It just causes stuff to blow up. At any given time, along Route 80 on that route, you can gather a bag of trash with, the addresses from, your customary municipalities, including in front of my house. So that's why I know this to be an ongoing true thing. And that has declined since we had that discussion in 22. And, I'm just concerned that with varying amounts of types of waste or any type of volume, even incremental,
I'll say this, about
there's a solution for that.
the MSW truck front loaders that come in are completely enclosed.
So are the rear loaders and the side loaders.
Yes,
They're all enclosed.
The MSW trucks are completely enclosed.
Yeah.
There's nothing blowing out. If something blows out of an MSW truck, I'd like to see that truck. 'Cause you
I think the trucks that I've seen stuff fly out of, because I live there and I'm outside working, are basically what do we call it, the municipal waste. The big yellow trucks, I think they're from Guilford.
Yeah, but they're enclosed.
But they're that back dump, I mean, the stuff's flying out of that back little place.
Yeah, hopper's closed out when the blade's down. So when it passes, you see that blade's closed. Typically, where trash comes out is in roll-offs and pickup trucks generally carrying C&D waste. That's where you get litter coming out.
Or people that are taking their garbage in the pickup truck to your local.
And that happens too. I mean, I see stuff fly out all the time, large things, old trash cans. Have landed, Not joke. So. I just don't know if there's any other solution to that, other, I mean, because there really is, you can't help what they're coming in with you with those roll-ins, I suppose.
No, that's the state highway that we would use to go to Essex or to the, Route 8 or 9 to go to wherever.
That's the benefit of having something next to the turnpike, that's the, right?
We still have to get.
Yeah, that assumes all the trucks will just go on the turnpike.
Yeah,
And it's, the turnpike zone is also Main Street.
You have zero control.
Right, and we have zero control, and you have, no one has control of that. Any truck is on any state highway, you can't restrict what highways they go on as part of a regulation of use.
So your analysis of the turnpike zone and the 250-foot setback from a residential. So you're like citing residential properties that were on a commercial use of property. So a non-conforming use was preventing you from a permitted.
I know.
Your regulations don't say residential zone, they say residential dwelling, which is the use.
Yeah, and so you interpreted the residential dwelling. And so
There's a house.
I'll read the rest, okay?
I already read, I want to see the house, the actual
It's a,
property that is a.
Sure.
And you consider more than one, there's three. So
there's
I-
1 Main Street and 447 Main Street,
Their houses.
and then the other remaining.
And there's. So it's a distance to the property line or to where the use will be on the property?
The property.
Oh, is this it?
Can you just grab property line?
Yeah.
So that would prevent, it wouldn't prevent.
It would.
So it does not,
Based on the language of the regulation.
Well, what the regulation prevents you.
what is it? So the language of the regulation says property resident?
No,
From a lot within.
Yeah,
the
I see it. A lot required.
It says, no such facility shall be located in a lot which abuts or is within 250 feet of a residential lot or a lot in which a dwelling is located.
there are dwellings on 3 lots.
What section is that?
Either way.
That's condition number
either way, I
1.
think where the lot or the residential house was located.
Under 7B38.
Yep.
But I think it would still be of majority of all of the, if you do buy house. Just because those ones aren't necessary to be.
So that seems like that's an easier correction or a easier variance. Or since there is a.
Oh,
Can you,
we-
so Nancy, can get your name?
Oh, Emma, Bloom.
And also check ins for the record. We can apply for a variance because one of the standards in your regulations is they can't be varied.
For use.
For this, none of these conditions can be varied. That's also part of your conditions. So we can't even do that.
So in that regard, in in our regulations, there is no,
I didn't know my printer right now.
so the MSW is not permitted. Right? Because we can't vary that use to expand the use to another material that is not supposed to be allowed to be processed.
I
Because
disagree.
of the language of our regulations, it's clear as far as materials. It's site, right? But we should have not a.
Your regulations don't use the word recycling or bulk waste or anything else.
The solid waste facility or the-
There's a number of verbs.
So the permit does.
The permit does. We're applying under the same use category that you approved the initial. The initial permit said that contemplated these other types of waste could be adopted. And we're doing the same thing, the same packing,
Yeah.
processing, except it's adding this type of waste and it's going to waste to fuel energy plants.
I get a share screen. Yeah.
So it does fit with it. The problem is that frankly, if it's not allowed under that use, it's not allowed at all under your present regulations, which means theoretically we could put it anywhere under 22A 208B. The problem is your separation distances, the way it's written, when you do an analysis of where houses are located, what lots have dwellings, no one can satisfy. And we've submitted this, it's in the record. We've submitted 2 reports. We've done the circles.
Yep.
And what I'm actually trying to help you guys. Because I think you can regulate it under the existing use, which is the same way you did that. Otherwise, we, in theory, could put it anywhere. So I think that this is what you should do. You should look at this. That's been my,
So your previous approval for the expanded use of the MSW really came from a verbal from the select. And then you proceed to take the MSW and now it's been a non-conforming use for, a decade or decades.
I disagree that it's a non-conforming use. I think it's a conforming.
Because I want to get.
I think it comes within the use category that was approved in 2005, 6, and 8. That use category still exists. So it's wrong to call this a non-conforming use. It is a conforming use. It fits within 2 categories. As I said
We just
initially,
disagree on the interpretation
except-
perhaps process, because I don't want to see it a selectman to give a verbal for a zoning, saying, yes, it's right, then you can accept it. You have to get the zoning approval.
I don't know.
Alan,
I agree.
I'm gonna ask Attorney Slater to weigh in on this.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know how the process, how we ended
I'm
up
trying to read the code.
using our facility. You did. I assume there's a contract, you paid for it, but I don't know who said what or when. I assume whoever is authorized to sign contracts did it. But whether it's the selectman or I don't know, but that's not the issue. It's the use issue. That I, so.
So, Attorney Slater, do you agree that this can be, we can proceed as a site plan and that, the use is something that fits that definition?
My recommendation is that I want to analyze what Attorney Andrus presented tonight. You have to process it the way it's been filed. You ultimately might conclude that it doesn't meet the regulations and under the site plan and deny it for that reason. But you need to process it and decide it, and you don't have to do that tonight. I'd recommend not to do it tonight so that we have an opportunity. I knew Attorney Andrus was going to make a presentation. He submitted some materials. I have some initial perspective on it, but I would rather digest it and offer an opinion to the commission in a more formal way if that works for the commission.
Yeah, it works for me because I wanted to actually reach out to the fire chief also.
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, do you guys have any more questions for Attorney Slater or the presenters?
Thank you.
All right, if not, we're gonna need a motion to continue.
Motion to continue.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hi, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
What is your next meeting?
Just-
Thank you.
It's usually the 3rd Thursday, but for the holidays,
Oh,
it's bumped up a week. So it's not always the 2nd Thursday, but December 11th.
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
No,
Can I have my red bag, please?
Oh,
my expectation was I was on 10 again. So I think this where you.
let's,
I'll draft something.
We have more.
We do, oh,
Can you stop sharing so I can see everybody? Thank you.
You wanna look at the regulation?
Square with me or somewhere.
I think.
I think we're good. Yeah.
No, look at you.
Um,
Can we make a motion to move that one up and then we'll get back? You said some all the other stuff.
yes.
Okay, so we need a motion to move item D above B. I'll say to move. Second. There. Okay, so new item B, 447 Main Street, inquire for permit to add second apartment on a property in the general commercial district.
So I'm actually gonna just give the overview quickly for you guys, since at the moment, the regulations don't explicitly allow for them to do a second apartment on their property. They have a pre-existing apartment on a commercial property in the general commercial zone. And the reason, Ken, why I thought I could just ask you while you're here is in the regulations in this zone, the following is permitted via zoning permit, which is dwelling accommodations for a caretaker, custodian, or watchman in conjunction with a principal use on the same premises. And in the regulations, multifamily residence, two-family residence is permitted on there, also in this zone. Mixed use, which really is what this would most closely be, is not listed on the use table. So basically, we have two things in our regs. The first is if a use is not listed or has a blank space in the schedule, that use is not allowed in the district. So the most straightforward interpretation would be mixed use isn't listed, so it's just not allowed. However, there are other dwelling things, including the caretaker dwelling, which is on a commercial property, which is permitted. So the other part of the language in this reg is notwithstanding other prohibitions in these regulations, the commission reserves the right to determine whether a proposed use that is not specifically permitted is substantially similar to another use that is permitted by these regulations. If the commission makes that determination, the proposed use may be permitted via a special permit. So essentially, I'm posing it to the commission and to our attorney, since we do have you here tonight. Does this pose a similar enough use to the permitted residential uses in the zone to move forward as a special permit? So I guess that's the
It's also one of the line items that is going on the special session that we may be hearing very soon in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and I do have a part two to this that's a
Might
little
be
bit
recently-
broad, especially as we've been talking about the downtown master plan and Main Street stuff. That's more about the general commercial zone anyway. But I'll let you guys talk about this first, and then that's just kind of a note that relates to some of the other threads on the agenda currently.
My question is, you said two families are okay.
Via special permit, but two-family dwellings are not the same as a commercial dwelling, a commercial
Mixed use.
build, a building with an apartment.
Well, mixed use does not imply, it's not implicitly residential. Mixed use is two different uses, of which residential is not permitted within the zone. There's one exception. The only domestic uses would be a caretaker's apartment or a bed and breakfast.
Well,
So-
mixed use in our definitions does factor in apartments though, like in the way that our regulations define mixed use.
So mixed, by definition, mixed use is residential.
It's a combination, commercial, residential.
That's in your definitional
It could be
section.
commercial, commercial, or commercial residential.
What?
It could be commercial, or commercial residential.
I can-
Do you have, are there any provisions that you're aware of that don't allow multiple permitted uses on the same lot? For example, a theater is allowed by special exception. You have a large piece of land and you have a theater, but somebody wants to put up a two-family on the same property. They're both special exception uses on the same land. Is there any section of the regulation that wouldn't allow more than one permitted use on the same property?
I would have to double check. I don't think we have any language that
I don't know.
prohibits that.
But I didn't think we had two family, and that's why I said we have two family. I thought we had none in town. So
Well, it's perfect for that
Okay.
specific zone.
that's why I was asking about that. Yeah, I thought there was out.
In the general commercial.
I just asking.
Yeah, well, that's why it's part two of the conversation is a little more about the zone in general. But I wanted to address their specific piece of it first before kind of opening up a
Right.
broader conversation.
I love getting caught on my toes.
Sorry, Ken.
I think I'm just trying to figure out how-
You got no background information here. Answer this question.
I'm not looking. to speak
Background,
out
you know,
for it.
like-
I'm looking at
Just now.
basic principles of zoning and the incompatibility of industrial with residential. That's why we have
Well, it's
zoning
not an
regulations.
industrial zone though.
It's not.
It's a,
The general commercial.
well, general commercial, right?
But you do allow
It's-
two families by special
Yeah,
exception.
well, and I guess the other thing that I wanted to point out about the general commercial zone, because I honestly, when I first looked at theirs, I thought it was turnpike industrial.
Yeah.
It's not,
It's
like,
that little spot down.
there's two spots that are general commercial. It's that little triangle area in near the turnpike industrial zone. And then a piece, at the top of Main Street near the village industrial zones. And in the part near the turnpike industrial, it is mostly commercial uses, but there are some houses there. And then the reverse is the case for the general commercial zone in the other place, where it exists. So there's also not a lot of consistency. Like most of those are, that's where the Kirtland Commons is, but then single and two-family houses almost exclusively. And those are the only two locations that we have the general commercial zone on the map. And so I wanted to bring that up just because I do agree with you that it seems a little weird. That those are the two spots that are general commercial based on what is permitted in the zone.
Is it, is this
Yeah.
brown
Yeah,
color?
so
I mean,
I just
it's
wanted to bring up-
essentially spot zoned and it's a use that's not permitted in the zone.
No, both
So
uses are
it's-
permitted in the zone. The question is whether or not you're mixed, the fact that you have mixed use defined in the regulation,
But it's
means-
not listed on the use.
but it's
table.
not listed in that use table. That creates the bigger.
Yeah.
You know,
So that's my question.
It's like little yellow spots.
Um,
that's what I'm trying to look at your mixed use section.
and I guess another like little bit of a side note, because on the agenda also is looking at some reg updates overall. I think it would be good for whenever anything is adopted or amended, it's useful for the zoning officer to be faster. Even if it said mixed use, no, it is still nice to just like have it there instead of having these things where I'm like, well, this kind of dwelling is allowed and this kind of dwelling is allowed, but this one isn't.
Again,
So,
a lot of stuff that come out of the special session, they had it, but it hasn't come down yet. And,
So now I
I
have
think
the
a lot of these
two
points are
family.
gonna be moved. We're rewriting a lot of these regulations pertaining to these types of, zones.
I don't disagree with you. But that doesn't land until it lands.
Right.
Well, I'm just.
Yeah, no,
For their benefit, if
agree
it's
with
3 days from now, I mean, this is something. you
Yeah,
know.
I mean, the part I struggle with is that the catch-all you're talking about is when something is similar enough to a use
But
that you
isn't
make a
defined.
decision to make it part of that. But here you have different use categories. And then you have the mixed use in the regulations. It's not in this list. So you've got something that pretty much is exactly what they're proposing to do. That's the key. Defined in the regulations, but not allowed in this category. It seems to me that this would be better addressed in a regulation amendment to clarify to allow it rather than to say that this is like a lot like one of these other things in the regulation. So that would be my leaning. That said, that regulation gives you some fair amount of wiggle room. So if the commission was inclined to want to go there, you could. But it made me call balls and strikes on it. I would say that it's law, and because there's no use category that it's similar to, just combining two. Now, if you regularly authorize multifamily, yeah, but still, that'd be two different building, and each use would be contained in its own building. Here, you put the two together, your regulations recognize that things can be combined together elsewhere in the regs, but don't allow it here. So I would probably disfavor using that catch-all to solve the problem here, but the problem might get solved very, very quickly.
Well, this second apartment, it's on a floor where there's no other commercial currently. Is that correct? The current apartment?
Well, is that?
Yeah, so this is to add a second apartment. So there's already an apartment that exists.
Yes.
And it's on a second floor?
Yeah.
And there's no commercial on that floor with that apartment right now?
No, second floor is residential, bottom floor is self. Commercial.
It's right here.
Is that one guy all by himself?
It's right here currently. Yeah, I know. That's why you're getting something.
Yeah, that's why I think.
The lawyer said.
That's why. I mean, if it were in there.
It seems like it should be, yeah.
I
think
think
it's-
it's intended to be in this.
No, it's not.
So
It's nice to have you here today. Probably bickering amongst ourselves.
So anyway,
It's a clarity.
it's like a few different things going on the category, but thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Now it's in the commission's hands. I did my part.
Yeah, that's the other caveat we give, no matter what. Including your attorney, it's still ultimately your interpretation of the regulation. Yep, so.
Right.
So, and I did say you could have some of the section.
So at this point, we can accept it because we don't decide on it tonight, correct?
Yeah, it's not a,
I don't,
Not an
We don't
application.
like-
it's not a formal application because I
Yeah.
couldn't submit it as anything, so I needed just the commission's general opinion of if you wanted to proceed with it in some form and how.
Something's gonna be coming down pretty competitive in the next.
You're pretty
I
optimistic.
don't want to say this for 3 months, but like,
All right.
I think Lamont's really gonna sign something, and then we're gonna have an idea of what, at least, because once that's, I don't think anything will change then for at least another few months. And we'll have an idea. I really don't want to put a lot of effort into going into a direction necessarily based on what we have. If it's just wasted work. next
Agreed.
week.
And I was looking at, it's all next to the Turnpike Industrial, and does that fit the Turnpike Industrial? And even if it was in the Turnpike Industrial, they still don't have a path forward with that, so.
250 feet from.
I know.
Yeah, well, there's almost definitely going to be something housing
Yeah.
related that you're going to be working on in your regulations that's going to come out of that bill.
Right.
And
That's
even if
fine.
it doesn't,
Yeah.
and even if it doesn't speak specifically to this issue,
Right.
it might give cause to, as you're doing regulation changes, to decide how you want to handle something like this.
That is on our list of reg changes too, because this is as you can see, a mess.
See, he's such a great orator. He said, that's what I said. She said it so much better. Glad that we.
Thank you for.
On that note, we're going to drop the mic and go home. Good night, folks.
Thanks,
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Have a good night. See you next month. Happy Thanksgiving.
Take care.
Okay,
Yeah, like,
so
I'm twisted.
having a good night tonight. So how do we want to proceed? Do we want to proceed? What's your guys' feeling on this? Are we just gonna wait for the government to come up with a better plan for this?
I think our responsibility is to work by our regulations, not to anticipate something's going to happen. Because our regulations were put in place for this town. I don't want to avoid or,
That's fine. I'm not gonna make any regulations. I know we're gonna get pulled a week. Well, it's not worth our time and effort. I mean, I think the sober thing to do is see how this comes down. It very, most likely, it's gonna be moot. It's gonna be moot to us. They're gonna take it out. That's most likely what's gonna happen.
Well, we also have a
I'm
regs,
not conceding control.
right, we also have a regs discussion for redoing our regulations and looking at most of these zones. We have a downtown
Yeah,
plan
yeah.
now.
I
That
think fits into
It
that.
has some things, some direction we're supposed to go in. So just changing this one thing, yeah, I don't think is the best idea. That's just me.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, like I said, we have a whole discussion coming up. We have a whole booklet that we have to go through with some directions. So this may be in there, it may be perfect, but I don't think we're ready to make the decision without looking through all the research we did and paid for.
So in terms of, so that's like the big, bird's eye view conversation.
Right.
In terms of their specific inquiry. I
Right.
want to be able to give them an answer.
I understand that. Do you think, what Ken said, do you think there's leeway in there that it could be a like use?
I don't.
I don't either.
I think that Alan is right. We have to follow the regs we have now. That's our attorney. He even looked at it and,
Okay.
So if he doesn't think the intent is there, we know we have to rewrite our regulations. We know that we need to work especially on housing, apartments. We need to redo all of that so that we can, I hope, allow more of it.
Right.
And that would be the time for this to come back to us, fit the regulations so that we could simply approve it and not have to
Right, if we,
Yeah, I don't want.
Do it 10
fine,
times.
so that's the whole, yes.
we want to do it
Right,
right. And we
right.
want to do it throughout the regs.
I understand, yeah, I agree with you that like, I mean, because it could be 3 apartments, could be 4 apartments.
I
we
would
should-
say,
let's get there.
recommend to hold off, that they hold off
Yeah.
until we can straighten it out so that they can have the fullest potential of what we can do with our regulations.
Even if it was an ADU, I would say it doesn't fit
No.
the
Doesn't,
regulations. It's.
I'm still blown away, we have 2 family.
What about the current apartment? That actually has
it's a caretaker, it's a
Well, no, it's-
dwelling for an on-site or.
Grandfathered in.
Yeah, it's not.
I'm sorry,
Geez.
It's an apartment, it's a non-conforming use now,
But it's that existing, so
so.
we can't, we
No,
we-
I mean, it's not-
we're not gonna take
So
that
we
away.
have a mixed use building in a commercial zone, so what's that considered?
It's a pre-existing non-conforming use. It doesn't mean you can expand it. It doesn't mean that we can grant another one. What it means is you were given that when you were given it, and it is legal because it's pre-existing. but it is non-conforming, and we cannot give you another one according to our regs right now. We want to fix our regs so that.
That's what we're paying.
Yeah.
We get it.
So,
Our regs say no.
Make my discretion speech.
Okay, all right, so consensus is we're gonna wait till we get through our regs.
Yeah, because I mean, the bottom line is right now, it doesn't fit, and we're not. I think if we could do a vote, but I don't think it's spot zoning is what we want to continue on.
Right.
I think we want to get to this point where we know, what the new rules are gonna be so that we can comply and then see, and then while we're doing that, we're gonna make modifications ourselves
Yeah.
beyond the rules, and this surely will be one that we look at.
Agreed.
And if they brought an application to us, we'd have to deny it.
Yeah.
So we couldn't do it, so. And
Okay.
we would like to be able to do it, so. We recommend come back and we get our rights straightened out for you to have it.
No, it's one on the webpage. I was gonna grab the.
And you're
It's a
aware
regular
of this,
calendar.
also, well, state, you're aware of that's outside of our.
Yeah, I know, it's that
Our hands are tied with a lot of different.
popped up, you know.
Oh, you're looking at calendar.
So I think that's a consensus.
Thank you for coming in. It's very
Thank
kind.
On to, I think it's C now, 2026 proposed meeting schedule. And so last time we were talking about changing this to Wednesday, since Zoe actually works on Wednesday, instead of having to drive down here on a Thursday from Hartford and just to come to our wonderful meetings.
Have you considered Saturday mornings?
Yeah, for 6 a.m. is a good
He may
time.
kill you.
Start the day, right?
I'm good with Wednesdays.
Okay. Everybody else good with Wednesdays?
Yeah.
That's good for me.
Awesome. See that? It's not for you.
It's the
Mhm.
voice of God, goddess.
Okay.
So,
And-
hold on. Nancy may have an issue with that, and Nancy's one of the.
Were you talking about changing of time?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Wednesday at 6.
You have it on even on the agenda. You at one point had been talking about 6 o'clock.
No? Are we gonna go with 6?
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Oh, yeah, it's time to change the date, change the time to 6.
Change the
Okay.
date and time.
I like that.
Does that work?
So are you okay with changing the time to it's a little earlier?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Can we change the location of Red House?
I like that.
Hey,
Official.
I think after it hits 8 PM, we just automatically move everyone to
Yeah.
the house so that those poor guys can drink while they're waiting.
Yeah.
Better get there then.
There'd be no problem with that.
Okay.
Probably should have bumped them up on the agenda.
Yeah,
I realize
I
that.
should
Yeah.
have had them before the 400 commercial. Feel bad.
And so lastly, we just a reminder for next month, because if we have to have this in next month, but we also have to amend our bylaws. Because the bylaws state when the meeting is. So we have to make sure we amend that. Yeah, that's right. I had it written down somewhere. I somehow remembered that. So it's unbelievable.
Why would that be in the bylaws? Because it's something that can change. A bylaw is more, I would just pull it out of the bylaws.
Well, we're supposed to
It's
review.
more of a procedural thing.
Yeah, we're supposed to review our bylaws
Yeah.
yearly anyway, so there you go. That's a good, we're changing them, taking it right out.
Okay, well, my note will still say amend bylaws.
Yeah,
Well, we have to, we have to take it out,
yeah. Okay.
and then we just follow the town process of getting schedule approved.
Town meeting, instead of everyone.
Right. All right, so now we get on to item D, discussion of expanding the scope of the design advisory board to include all signs and the harbor district. So. Okay, huh?
Was this when you out?
You can't by the state statute.
You
If
can't,
we can make the harbor district a village district, it has to meet the definition of a specific district that has a character. But to expand it to signs throughout town, you can't.
but could it be an
Because,
automatic referral from us? Can we do that?
no,
Huh?
because, I mean, we can kindly ask them an opinion, but their opinion is not enforceable.
Right,
So,
but if we put in our regs, all signs needed to design advisory review,
yeah,
we can do that, right? I'm not saying.
I don't think technically you can require that of them.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
I know what you're saying.
Be-
Trying to look.
It's because it's not
Why you
enforceable.
can't do that?
Because
State, what is it?
design review is only allowed by a state statute that designates an area of character or cultural interest. So a historic district was the origin of it.
Mhm.
But then they created a softer, the village district that you designate saying it has character that has value to the town for, you know, whatever. It's that there is something that's recognizable. But it requires, the review process then requires that it has either a board that's comprised and inclusive of design professionals, or you use a professional consultant. So because it's subjective,
Mhm.
you need to render a professional opinion. So the state statute does require that you designate a district.
Okay.
And that's what affords the authority to have the design review and the enforceability of a recommendation.
Like a historical district.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, the
So-
only thing. Oh, I'm sorry,
Also,
Sarah.
the voice of God over here. Um, Also, we can make them an advisory board. So you can have all the signs go through them as advisors so that there is some kind of uniformity to signs in town. Also regulating size, color, all of that. That's what is done in Old Saybrook. But yeah, it's not a regulatory board, it's an advisory board.
Yeah, that's exactly what they are. And the only way it's enforceable is if we decide to enforce their recommendation. But again, I think the requirement that it be reviewed for design has to be within a designated district. Because I think that if we use a design advisory board to review things outside of a district, it's not enforceable. So we're subjecting.
We would be the enforcing agent. They would make a recommendation to our board, and then we would enforce those recommendations.
But we're not allowed to enforce regulations which are subjective
Yeah, it's a big flag.
unless it's explicit in our regulations
What is
and it's
the,
outside of a district. We cannot.
So we don't have any sign regulations.
We do have sign
We do.
regulations, so
Okay.
we can enforce those under the normal
So
zoning.
that's what the parameters that the design review board, whatever, would be working under.
what does the sign regulations say now?
One second. So, but that's, I think we run into that problem anyway, because we, as planning and zoning, can't dictate color and
Correct.
content and of signs. And as let's be honest, Deep River is a small little town. It should have some uniformity in their signs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
we get that nice new sign at the dump.
Well, that's my point. When I did a application, I had the sign was a hot topic
Mm.
because I put in sign. But now here, the dump has this light up sign
Yeah, yeah.
Which is not permitted.
and it's,
An illuminated sign is not permitted under our zoning regulations. But
so where are we
Except they're
at with the,
Except they're exempt.
My wife used to want the park down.
What is that changing?
Oh, we put that ordinance in a long time ago. They just haven't
The
voted on
dump
it.
sign isn't illuminated though. It's an electric sign.
What was the first part of that? I'm sorry.
The dump sign isn't illuminated.
Oh.
It's an electric.
Electronic. Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
I mean, I know working in Old Saybrook that every single sign that comes in town throughout the whole entire town has to go through the architectural review board. So I know that there is some kind of leeway within the regulations that we would be allowed to kind of have a advisory board on that could work within the parameters of a sign regulations.
But just because Saybrook is doing it, doesn't mean they're doing it legally. Old Lyme tried to do the same thing of institute, design review on Halls Road, and, that's not allowed by the state.
That's
So-
easily shut down by the state.
Right.
That's right.
So
That's right.
you can do it,
Yeah,
you can get
so
away with it.
maybe this is something that we need to look into, because I agree, being a small town, that we should have some kind of uniformity or, some kind of restrictions on signage.
What's that?
All this uniformity that we saw.
Town's exempt from its own zoning. It's the thing, we had this discussion before.
I thought we,
Properties and they just still go
We
against.
did, we put it forward, they haven't voted on it yet. I think it was so they could get their sign.
their-
Just
we need to
saying.
crack down, and vote on it, because
Yeah,
That's probably a safe assumption. Yeah,
push other things. The sign isn't a big deal, but
but it is ridiculous.
It is.
I'll say for the record, the town doesn't follow its own zoning.
yes, it
With
is.
the budget we're working with these days.
Yeah.
A painted sign, wood sign that says these are the operating hours, everybody knows anyway. Or keep out sign.
Okay.
all right, we're up on a tangent, I
How
don't want
about
to be
the
on.
fact that it's electrified, and I know, I mean, I haven't put a tape measure on it or whatever, but you got a right of way off that road.
Hmm.
For the state.
Yep, somebody should report them to the state.
Yeah. I
You're putting
actually,
electric-
it's 5 feet. Yeah, I mean, it's 15 feet and then 5 feet. That's how far back. it
You
really-
measure off the yellow line, because
Yes.
Well,
anytime it's.
they needed a
road-
building permit for that, right? Or at least an electrical permit to put that in, so.
They need an encroachment permit from the state, they needed a bunch of things.
They need a budget.
Yeah.
I'm sure
That's not the
you-
reason I brought this up. So as upset I am, as I am about it, I really truly wanted to know about expanding the scope for design advisory. And so if the Harbor District, what creates a village district? If it was the landing district?
So
I mean,
you
it's
could
historic
designate that, but you would have to be able to cite what the pervasive beneficial character of that area is. And it can't be, this house and this house and this house. It has to be a context. And you could probably do that, but it would be, you might want to address this with design advisory to get their opinion first.
I did. They were open to signs and the Harbor District, just. They're,
They just look for something to do.
they are, but again, I think, we try and dictate signs, and I don't think we have the authority to dictate anything more than the size. You,
Size and placement.
right,
Well, so-
other than that, you can't.
Illumination, we can.
You can do illumination too.
It's not- Yeah. Unless it's on town property.
Illumination makes sense because that, and we already have that in our regulations. But there's some things that I just think we tend to over-regulate.
Okay.
We tend to ignore use and say, well, we can find a loophole for you to get this in. But, the regulated aesthetics is coming from an architect,
Okay.
is problematic. I think we like to over-regulate and not, I think our primary role is just to protect the citizens from invasive uses. Somebody's subjective opinion of what looks good and looks bad.
Well, one of the reasons is, the non-cannabis shop in town, right? They have sign issues.
Yeah, I hear from my wife all the time. She's like, how come you guys aren't doing your job? I try to tell her, that's not for us to see.
Well,
Which,
the illuminated signs are.
Yeah,
Um,
that is the thing, neon.
That's a lighted sign. The, yeah, I like it. The, next to Calamari's, I don't know what the name of the shop is. The CBD store.
Remember that cowboy thing that was out front?
Smoke shop, thank you. Yeah,
The
drive by at night,
animated
even you can see.
blow up. cowboy or whatever it is.
I like that.
Is it lit?
Oh, yeah, right, right.
We can do wine day. We can practice here on home.
They're selling more than smoke there. How
I,
else do you pay the bills?
I think a sign should be downlit.
Yeah.
Just downlit so you can see it, but I don't.
Well, it's
think
not-
it'd be illuminated.
they're all in the windows. It's not the sign. It's not the business sign.
Right.
The
Right, right,
windows.
that's the thing,
Because we're-
behind the glass.
Yeah.
We're afraid of.
And we didn't, we could zone for that type of thing, but we only zoned for, I believe, like for, package stores, or liquor stores.
No, we
Signing?
can zone how many square feet a sign can be. We
Right, you can do-
Yeah,
zone-
but whether or not-
It's in our regulations, sizes, illumination.
It's got 8 pages.
All you gotta do is say that
It's considered a sign.
the way you handle it is that the luminaire can't be visible. And that's how you get night sky and things like that, because the signage that you see down there is that you're actually looking at the luminaire. So that's why it's so glaring and, you know,
So are they violating it now? The regulation?
yes, in my opinion, yes. If it were brought to us, I would
Zoe?
say no.
So is electronic sign.
She's looking through the 800 pages of signs.
Yeah, it's 8 pages.
Thank you, Zoe.
I think part of it was just. I know they have like 1 million of those, so they have like a ton of them, but other restaurants along like Calamari's also has like a couple illuminated window signs. And so I would just,
There's a maximum.
I would feel like
Bud
you should do
Light,
all of
Miller
them.
are okay.
Are they neon signs?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So they're not the only, so basically, this home shop is obvious, like they have a ton. But I think part of my reason was
Go in the notes.
there's other
it's on the table.
buildings right next door that also have the neon signs in their windows.
There's a maximum total sign area.
Yeah,
All
comes down to
types.
square
except
feet.
for- So they got 6 signs.
All right, so are you saying this is going nowhere? We're not regulating signs and we're not gonna include the harbor district, the village, whatever it is, the harbor district?
I think we should move in that direction, at least vet it, but I wouldn't form an opinion without, you know.
I heard you say you don't think we can.
I don't think we can include signage throughout town for aesthetic review. We can build it, we can change our regulations if we want to prohibit any sort of illuminated sign, which I know that there is some regulation on that already. You know, we can tighten that up, but design reviews is only allowed under the state statute that you have to kind of identify a specific area that has specific cultural importance to the town.
Right, well, I mean, we are working on our regulations, so we'll just, we keep that in the back of our minds for now.
Well, Zoe, you'll look and see if there's anything that's an open violation as far as amount of signs or.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zoe.
We could probably narrow our sign regulation down just a bit. Seeing 8
There's
pages.
there's a
long.
I mean,
regulation.
the way the sign regulations are
Mm.
are kind of a pain in the butt in general.
Yeah, there's-
And you know,
There's
Sign
window
regulations.
sign regulations. too.
I know.
I think there's something in there about divided lights too,
anything, yeah, I can
which
lay logs in my yard.
is exactly what's not supposed to be in
Form something
zoning.
that's
Right.
considered a sign.
Exactly. And I know who put it.
Yeah, it is crazy how that wood is
Zoe
cut
was-
just such a way.
Yeah, Phil, Phil, it's-
All right,
Tree fell, branch broke.
so if you guys, I mean, we're not gonna act on anything for this night, just want to throw it out there so everybody's aware. I guess we're moving on to reports. ZEO,
Look at the full thing,
you have nothing,
just minutes.
Thanksgiving's coming, be thankful.
I'm
right?
just doing as much as I can. Catching up, after traveling, so I'm almost there, and I will now have a new notice violation.
Speaking of ZEO, I want to
Uh,
add to this because, so we kind of discussed this a little bit, Zoe, I and John. And the selectmen are aware of it. There's not enough hours for.
I was just gonna say, where's our budget stand?
Yeah, so At the moment, we're gonna go forward with the backing, it sounds like the selectmen are gonna back an additional 8 flexible hours. So if the workload of 800 FOIs come in again, and Zoe has to spend the entire day doing that, she can,
I spent
Coming
3
on
hours
Thursday.
looking through boxes, and I'm only in for
right?
Can we just take that out of the building department budget?
Yes.
So Mr. Lovejoy mentioned with the projects that we're working on,
Yes.
any ZEO hours that go towards housing.
Yep.
Not just this project, but towards housing, which could be POCD,
Yep.
or else, that we should record those, because we can't be reimbursed, or, I can't speak tonight, I apologize, that would be the word.
Yeah.
From the Department of Housing,
Really?
yes. Through
A
the
little late for that?
No, but this is a real, I think I mentioned it to Zoe before, but it's a relatively new thing.
Okay. Well, we'll have to-
Long hours,
Right,
housing hours.
all right, so anyway, that's,
does that include signing off on permits for new housing?
Well,
Or does
we'll
that
talk
mean, like-
about, we can talk about it more later. No, I'll
Yeah, let me know
tell you
what.
how I understand it.
okay. Well, good to know. But anyway, so that that has to be presented to the Board of Selectmen now that we discussed it here. So I will send them a letter for the next meeting next Tuesday. Regulation discussion, decide next steps. Do we want to give Zoe some carte blanche, or do we want to set up this, a regulations committee again? Do we want her to bring us piecemeal stuff, like the sign section, and go, hey, I've narrowed this down to 2 pages now. What do you guys think?
Well,
Do we want to work that way?
I mean, we'll wait till December 11th to make that decision, because once they announce what's going on, we might have a whole lot of regulations to change. It might really be a heavy load, or it might be a few small things that could be one-offs, but if it's a heavy load, we don't want to spend all our time in this forum.
So the
going
last
through.
couple of times they've done this, they usually give you a year to get all your crap together.
Right, that's
So-
why I'm like, probably don't
But
need
that's
the
what-
regulations before that.
Well, no, but I mean, we have the budget now to go through our regulations. We can't, if the more we wait,
Oh, I
they
see,
could
I
go,
see.
forget it. You guys didn't spend it.
Okay, I understand you're saying for the budgeting standpoint.
Yeah, so we should start putting some hours towards, well, Zoe has to put hours towards that. Do we want a separate regulations meeting, or do we want to have pieces come in under the regular zoning meetings?
Is that for us or for Zoe?
Do you guys want to have an extra meeting, or do you want to have it at your regular zoning meeting?
Regular zoning.
I agree with that myself.
Just that, yeah, I'd rather add a couple hours to one night.
Yeah, okay. Well, starting a little earlier too, so. All right.
And even later, so. just
Right.
kidding.
All right, so that sounds good. Attorney, anything from the attorney, he was here.
He was here. We all had our chance. Just-
All right.
Really fast, actually, on the regulations thing. Do you want to do like choose a section and do it that way? And if so, or a topic, however you want to structure it. And if so, is there anything that you would want to have prepared to discuss for the December meeting?
I don't think we should jump around.
Yeah.
I think we should start at the beginning and move through, and I've got a couple of suggestions if the commission is open to how we lay that out, just to make it easier. So that we're not missing anything and we are going to one place to look for a lot of stuff all at once.
So from an agenda standpoint, do you want me to just put like section 1 or pages blank to blank for everyone to review prior to the
Right.
meeting?
Go ahead. You probably have the same problem I have.
Instead of going in order, it's like reading a code book. I think what we have to do is map it out first with an outline and see the interrelated sections. So that we can see, this is going to affect that, is going to affect that. So we've got to basically do a logic chart on our regulations first. And that's the heavy lift. So, and that's where I think if you can sit in a room for a month alone, without anybody's input or opinions, and
With
just kind of
your new budget.
figure it out without distraction. To understand what the logic is, to understand where our disconnects are. Then we can say, okay, here are the big issues. And then when we hit the sections, we can solve the disconnects.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I meant about bouncing around, because we're going
Yeah.
to miss, because we have things in so many places maybe, or that do affect each other, we're gonna miss them. So we gotta
Let's,
get that outline.
You just-
Yeah.
so my problem with this, it wasn't the same. is we also have the zoning map to deal with. And a lot of ours, we have 500,000 zones, and we just looked at that tonight. The general commercial district is 3 properties on one end of the town. Then it's got an R60 property just because it has a house on it. And then it's Turnpike Industrial next to that. So we have one single dot property, speaking of spot zoning.
Yes, because what
Well,
they,
that's-
when they created the village districts, they
Yeah.
carved them out and then there was a residual
Yeah.
and then they said, oh, well, what we're doing is, well, there's a house here, so we'll just gerrymander around that. That's why we have this,
Right,
we don't have zones, we have
Right.
parcels.
right, exactly. Bob's house stayed an R60 house, and then we went around that. So I'm saying that's part of the problem is we have to look at that too when we're looking at our regulations.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's 2 months in the dark room with the regulations. Anyway, that's all. I just want to make sure we don't miss that
Are
part
you
of it.
expecting to get 2 months in a dark room?
I've been trying to get that to get some of this other work done. That's why the downtown master plan took so long, honestly.
Right, and that has to be looked at to be incorporated too, so. Chairman, I got nothing for you. Budget, we talked about the extra 8 hours for flexible stuff. That'll come up more after the first of the year. Rivercog Housing Committee.
So, like, can we make sure that, I know I mentioned this every month, but so I can make sure that we amend the agenda to say housing and planning, For both those?
Yeah.
because it's the one, spend a couple hours doing that for a 2-minute pitch. So planning, last month was canceled, so no report. Housing last month, we ran through, essentially a workshop. They're putting together, it's the second report of my last report of where they're creating an educational platform for all the local zoning commissions. And so we went through of that. And then the meeting was moved earlier. It was supposed to be Tuesday, but they canceled. So I don't have that to report from that. And the next planning meeting is on Monday night. And that's gonna be big because ideally they're gonna talk about what we're gonna be expected to deal with and what some of the tentative timelines are, what it's gonna look like. So I'm really crossing my fingers we get enough information to kind of know what we're going into January with. And we have another appointee for that, right?
Yep.
I wasn't sure if she went to the last one, but
I don't know if she's on the housing committee. She's on
no, for the planning,
No.
I'm sorry.
for the regional planning committee.
She's on mute. Are you going to the regional planning on Monday?
This coming Monday?
Yes.
I can.
Well, I'd like to list you as an alternate. I'll be attending, but in the event that I can't attend, it'd be nice if you can attend those monthly, and then once you have an idea of or both know what's going on, then it'd be good. Maybe we can arrange so I can have some months off or whatever.
Yeah. Do you want to just get my email from
Yeah,
Zoe
just-
and you can email me?
Okay, I can do that. I believe her email is on the group email.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll do that, Terry. Thank you. That's all I have on that.
Okay. Payment of bills? None? I like that.
I mean, we'll get one from Ken at some point.
True. Adjournment. We want to make that motion
Motion adjourned.
for a second? No one?
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Nobody gets to vote. Oh, I can't wait. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Give me 1 second.